Why the hell was the air conditioning making that grinding noise again? I muttered under my breath, crawling behind the server rack with a flashlight and my trusty toolbox. 21 years at Horizon Digital, and I still got called the fix-it guy like I was some handyman they found in the yellow pages. My name's Daniel Harkins, 51 years old, and I've been keeping this place running since the Clinton administration. Not the IT guy, not the facilities manager, just Daniel who shows up when things break. Which was pretty much every damn day. The grinding got louder. I traced the sound to a loose fan belt connected to the main cooling unit. Same belt I'd worn them about 6 months ago. The same belt they said could wait until next quarter's budget. Same belt that was about to fry every computer on the 3rd floor. I grabbed my wrench and tightened the connection. The grinding stopped. The servers hummed peacefully. Crisis averted, just like always. But did anyone notice? Did anyone care that I just saved them from a $10,000 disaster? Of course not. I was invisible. The guy who patched holes, fixed what was broken, and kept the lights on while everyone else got the credit. 21 years of being the backbone nobody could see. Little did they know, I was about to become very, very visible. Remember when I found the espresso machine wired into the HVAC system? That was back in 2018. The CEO's precious coffee maker was sharing a circuit with the building's ventilation. One power surge, and we could have had a real fire on our hands. I discovered it during a routine inspection, following wires like breadcrumbs through the ceiling tiles. There it was, spliced into the main electrical feed like some kind of Frankenstein creation, probably done by whatever contractor they hired cheaply. I spent 3 hours rewiring it properly. 3 hours on my hands and knees, breathing dust and fighting with electrical tape. When I finished, I wrote up a detailed report explaining the fire hazard and how I'd fixed it. The CEO's assistant thanked me with a polite smile. The report disappeared into the void of company emails. No safety meeting, no acknowledgement, nothing. Just another Tuesday for Daniel the fix-it guy. But here's the thing about fixing problems in the dark. You start to remember every wire, every connection, every shortcut that could bring the whole system down. You become the walking memory of a building's secrets. They never thanked me for preventing that fire, but they sure would remember me soon enough. 21 years of loyalty, and what did I have to show for it? A desk in the basement next to the water heater and a business card that said, Maintenance Coordinator. Not even facilities managers. Just maintenance. I started here when the company had 12 employees and dreams bigger than their bank account. I watched them grow from a cramped office above a deli to 3 floors of gleaming corporate space. I'd seen CEOs come and go, departments expand and contract, and through it all, I was the constant. The guy who knew which pipes froze in winter, which electrical panels sparked when it rained, which conference room's projector needed a good smack to work properly. I was living, breathing institutional knowledge wrapped in a guy they called for toilet clogs. Every morning at 6:30 sharp, I unlocked the building with my original set of keys. Every evening, I did the final walkthrough, making sure everything was secure. Weekends, holidays, snow days, I was always on call. My wife used to joke that I was married to that building more than to her. She wasn't entirely wrong. I knew every square inch of that place like my own home. Funny how 21 years can feel both like a lifetime and like nothing at all when you're getting shown the door. The office only worked because I made it work. While everyone else focused on quarterly reports and strategy meetings, I kept the foundation solid underneath their feet. When the main water line burst in 2019, flooding the 1st floor at 3 a.m., who do you think got the emergency call? Me. I spent 6 hours with a wet vac and industrial fans, saving thousands in equipment and documents. The insurance adjuster said my quick response prevented catastrophic damage. Did I get a bonus? A raise? A simple thank you at the next company meeting? Nope. Just a pat on the shoulder, and back to the basement I went. That's when it hit me. I wasn't an employee. I was an infrastructure. Like the plumbing or the electrical system, essential but invisible. Taken for granted until something went wrong. Then suddenly everyone needed me desperately. I fixed their problems so they could ignore them. I handled their crises so they could sleep soundly. I was the guy who made sure their fancy offices stayed functional while they played with spreadsheets and PowerPoints. The irony was beautiful, really. They saw me as just the fix-it guy, but I was actually holding their entire world together. And they were about to learn what happened when the foundation decided to walk away. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning at 9:47 a.m. Subject line, Organizational realignment. Immediate action required. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. I'd seen this dance before. Watch good people get called into conference rooms and come out carrying cardboard boxes. The company was evolving, they always said. Streamlining operations and optimizing human resources. Corporate speak for cutting people loose. But me? I figured I was safe. I was the guy who kept everything running. The one person who knew where all the metaphorical bodies were buried. Who else would fix their problems? The email was short and clinical. My position was being eliminated as part of our strategic restructuring initiative. Effective immediately, I was to report to HR for transition planning and final documentation. I read it 3 times, each word hitting like a punch to the gut. 21 years reduced to buzzwords and business jargon. 2 decades of loyalty answered with a form letter that probably got sent to a dozen other people. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Something quieter, but more dangerous. They wanted to eliminate me? Fine. But they forgot one important detail about playing with infrastructure. When you remove the wrong piece, everything else comes crashing down. Claire Peters from HR smiled at me like I was a golden retriever being put down. All sympathy and soft voices, explaining how this was actually good news for everyone involved. Daniel, we're so grateful for your dedication over the years, she said, sliding a folder across the conference table. This restructuring allows us to bring in fresh energy and new synergies to our operational framework. Fresh energy, new synergies, operational framework. I nodded along while she talked, but all I heard was corporate noise covering up the fact that they were throwing away 2 decades of my life. We're offering a generous severance package, she continued. 3 months' salary plus extended health benefits. All we need is your signature acknowledging receipt of company property and agreeing to our standard non-disclosure terms. I opened the folder. 3 months' pay for 21 years of service. A non-compete clause that would make it hard to find similar work. And a list of company property to return, including my keys and access cards. Take your time reviewing everything, Claire said. Though we'll need your response by the end of business today. I looked at her earnest face, her practiced compassion, her complete ignorance of what she was actually asking for. She had no idea what those keys unlocked, what access I really had, or what company property truly meant. I'll have everything back to you this afternoon, I said quietly. Mark Delaney, the vice president of operations, barely looked up from his phone when I knocked on his door. This was the man who'd hired me back in 2002, who'd shaken my hand and promised I'd always have a place at Horizon Digital. Dan, hey, he said without eye contact. Claire filled me in on the transition. Just want you to know this is all part of our growth strategy. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. 21 years of fixing his problems, covering his mistakes, making him look competent to his superiors. Nothing personal. I understand, I said. Business is business. Exactly. He nodded, finally meeting my eyes. You've been a real soldier, Dan. Hope you land somewhere that appreciates your skills. The pause before skills said everything. To him, I was a wrench turner, a guy who unclogged toilets and changed light bulbs. Useful but replaceable. A commodity to be swapped out when convenient. I'm sure I'll find my place, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Just wanted to say goodbye before I clear out. He gave me that politician's smile, the one that said this conversation was already over in his mind. Best of luck, Dan. Really. I walked out of his office knowing I'd never see him again. At least, not as an employee. Our next meeting would be very different. Packing 21 years into a cardboard box is a special kind of humiliation. Coffee-stained notebooks full of system passwords and maintenance schedules. A desk fan I'd brought from home. A photo of my wife from our anniversary dinner last year. The basement office felt smaller somehow, like it was already forgetting I'd ever been there. I pulled out drawers, emptied filing cabinets, and gathered the small collection of personal items that had accumulated over 2 decades. Nobody came down to say goodbye. Not the people whose computers I'd fixed, whose coffee makers I'd repaired, whose offices I'd cleaned up after weekend water leaks. 21 years of helping, and I was packing up alone. I found my original employee handbook in the bottom drawer, still in its plastic sleeve. Welcome to the Horizon Digital family, it said on the cover. Family doesn't throw you away, I thought. Family doesn't reduce your worth to a 3-month severance check. The security guard watched me carry the box to the parking garage. He nodded politely, but didn't speak. Just doing his job, making sure the terminated employee didn't steal anything valuable on his way out. If only he knew what valuable things I was actually taking with me. But those weren't in the box. Those were in my memory and in my filing cabinet at home. As I pushed through the lobby doors for the last time, I heard it. Laughter echoing down from the executive conference room on the third floor. Bright, cheerful voices celebrating something. Maybe it was a good sales quarter. Maybe someone got promoted. Or maybe they were just relieved that the old fix-it guy was finally gone, clearing the way for their shiny new operational framework. The sound hit me like ice water in my veins. While I was carrying my life's work out in a cardboard box, they were having a party 3 floors up. While I was dealing with the end of my career, they were planning their bright future without me. I stood there on the sidewalk, holding that pathetic box, listening to the laughter drift down from the windows above. For a moment, I felt small, insignificant, just like they wanted me to feel. But then something shifted. The coldness in my chest spread, hardened into something sharper. They thought they were laughing at my expense? They had no idea what they'd actually done. They just cut loose the one person who knew all their secrets. The one person who held the keys to everything that mattered. The one person who could bring their laughter to a very sudden stop. I walked to my truck with steady steps, that laughter still echoing behind me. Enjoy it while you can, I thought. The punchline's coming soon. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table with a beer and started going through the papers I'd accumulated over the years. Bank statements, insurance policies, warranty cards for appliances I'd forgotten I owned. At the bottom of the pile, wrapped in a rubber band, I found something that made my heart skip. A brass key, tarnished with age, attached to a small cardboard tag in my own handwriting. Office, original 2002. Underneath it was a manila folder I hadn't opened in 20 years. The tab read Horizon Lease Agreement in faded blue ink. My hands shook slightly as I lifted the cover. There it was, yellowed and brittle, but still legally binding. The original lease agreement for Horizon Digital's office space. Signed September 15, 2002. And there, on the signature line for primary lessee, was my name. Daniel J. Harkins. Not a cosigner. Not a witness. The primary lessee. I remembered now. The company was so new, so desperate for office space, that they couldn't qualify for a commercial lease. No credit history, no financial backing, just big dreams and empty pockets. So I signed for them. Put my name, my credit, my reputation on the line to help them get started. They promised it was temporary, just until they got established. They promised they'd transfer it over once the company was stable. 21 years later, that promise was still just a promise. And I was still the legal tenant of their entire operation. I spread the lease documents across my kitchen table like puzzle pieces, each page revealing another detail I'd forgotten. The monthly rent, the renewal clauses, the termination procedures. All of it ran through me. Back in 2002, Horizon Digital was just 5 guys in a room with folding tables and secondhand computers. They had a great business plan, but zero corporate credit. Landlords wouldn't even return their calls. That's when Mark Delaney, back when he was just another startup dreamer, asked if I'd help them out. Just until we get established, Dan. 6 months, maybe a year. Then we'll transfer everything over to the company. I believed him. Hell, I wanted to help. These guys were working 18-hour days, sleeping on couches, betting everything on their vision. I admired that kind of dedication. So I signed the papers, put my personal credit on the line, and became their legal anchor in the world of commercial real estate. The landlord was happy to have someone with steady employment and good credit. The company was thrilled to finally have an office. Everyone won. Except they forgot to keep their promise about transferring the lease. Now, 21 years later, I was looking at legal documents that made me the sole tenant of record for 3 floors of prime downtown office space worth about $40,000 a month. They wanted to eliminate my position? Fine. But they couldn't eliminate me from the lease. That required a signature. My signature. I pulled out a magnifying glass and examined every line of the lease agreement. The renewal clauses, the subletting restrictions, the termination procedures. It was all there, clear as daylight. According to Section 7.3, any subletting arrangement required written approval from the primary tenant. Me. Had they ever asked permission to expand into the 2nd and 3rd floors? Nope. Had they ever gotten my signature on the modifications? Not once. Section 12.1 covered lease termination. Either party could end the agreement with 60 days written notice. The landlord could terminate for non-payment or lease violations. The tenant, that's me, could terminate for any reason at all. I was the legal tenant. Horizon Digital was just a subtenant, whether they realized it or not. And subtenants who violated the original agreement could be evicted. The beauty of it was stunning. For 21 years, I'd been their invisible foundation, keeping everything running while they built their empire on top. But I wasn't just the maintenance guy. I was the landlord. They thought they owned that building, those offices, that prime real estate location. But ownership is about paperwork, not assumptions. And all the paperwork had my name on it. I leaned back in my chair, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. Power. Real, legal, documented power over the people who'd just thrown me away like yesterday's newspaper. The fix-it guy was about to fix his biggest problem yet. I didn't feel angry anymore. Anger was hot, messy, and emotional. This was something colder and more precise. This was justice with a paper trail. They'd calculated my worth at 3 months severance. A nice, tidy sum to make their conscience feel better about discarding 21 years of loyalty. But they'd miscalculated. Badly. My real worth wasn't in fixing their coffee machines or unclogging their toilets. It was in the signature on a lease agreement they'd forgotten existed. It was the legal foundation of their entire operation. I sat there at my kitchen table, documents spread in front of me, and felt a calm settle over me that I hadn't experienced in decades. No more crawling behind server racks. No more emergency calls at 3 a.m. No more being invisible while holding everything together. They wanted fresh energy and new synergies. They were about to get more energy than they could handle. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed. Gerald Franklin, property manager for downtown commercial real estate. The man who'd been collecting rent checks with my name on them for 21 years. My finger hovered over the call button for just a moment. Once I made this call, there would be no going back. The fix-it guy would be gone forever, replaced by something they'd never seen coming. I pressed call and listened to the phone ring, a smile spreading across my face for the first time in weeks. Franklin Property Management, Gerald speaking. Mr. Franklin, this is Daniel Harkins. I'm the primary tenant for the Horizon Digital lease on Maple Street. A pause. Oh yes, Mr. Harkins. We've been working with your company's accounting department for years. How can I help you? I need to discuss terminating the lease agreement. Another pause, longer this time. Terminating? Is the company relocating? No, I said quietly. The company isn't terminating anything. I am. As the primary tenant of record, I'm exercising my right under Section 12.1 to end the lease agreement. Silence on the other end. I could practically hear the wheels turning as Gerald processed what I was saying. Mr. Harkins, I think there might be some confusion. Horizon Digital has been our tenant for over 20 years. They've never missed a payment, never caused any problems. Check your records, I interrupted. Check the original lease agreement from 2002. Check who signed as the primary tenant. Check who's legally responsible for that space. More silence. Then typing sounds. I'm going to need to pull the original file and get back to you. You do that, I said. And when you confirm what I already know, call me back. I'll be waiting. I hung up and sat back in my chair. The first domino was wobbling, ready to fall. Gerald Franklin called back 2 hours later. His voice was different now, careful and professional. Mr. Harkins, I've reviewed the original lease documentation. You are indeed listed as the primary tenant. However, Horizon Digital has been our operational contact for all matters related to this property for many years. That doesn't change the legal reality, I said. I signed that lease. My name is on every renewal. And according to Section 12.1, I can terminate with 60 days written notice. Sir, surely we can work something out. This is a significant commercial property. There must be some arrangement. There is an arrangement, I interrupted. It's called following the lease agreement. The same agreement I've honored for 21 years while they treated me like hired help. Gerald was quiet for a moment. Mr. Harkins, may I ask what prompted this decision? They eliminated my position yesterday. After 21 years of service, they decided I was expendable. Turns out they miscalculated what they could afford to lose. I see. His voice was carefully neutral now. And you're certain you want to proceed with termination? I looked at the brass key sitting on my kitchen table, then at the lease documents with my signature on every page. Mr. Franklin, I want that termination notice hand-delivered to their office tomorrow morning. Make sure it goes to the CEO personally. And the 60-day notice period? I smiled. Actually, let's make it 30 days. I'm feeling generous. The next morning, I sat on my front porch with coffee and waited for my phone to ring. It didn't take long. 8:47 a.m. Claire from HR. I let it go to voicemail. 9:15 a.m. Mark Delaney, the VP who'd barely looked at me yesterday. Voicemail. 9:33 a.m. Richard Coleman, the CEO himself. This one I answered. Daniel, what the hell is going on? I just got some legal notice about lease termination. There has to be some mistake. No mistake, Richard. Just paperwork catching up with reality. Look, if this is about your termination, we can discuss bringing you back. Maybe there was a miscommunication. There was no miscommunication. You made it very clear that my services were no longer needed. I'm simply taking your advice and eliminating unnecessary relationships. Daniel, be reasonable. You can't just kick us out of our offices. Actually, I can. Check section 12.1 of your lease agreement. Oh wait, you don't have a lease agreement. I do. Silence on the other end. I could picture him frantically shuffling through papers, trying to understand what was happening. This is insane, he finally said. We'll fight this in court. Good luck with that. Make sure you find lawyers who work for free, since you'll need to relocate your legal department along with everything else. I hung up and took another sip of coffee. The second domino was falling. By noon, my phone had rung 17 times. HR, legal, accounting, even the cleaning service asking if they should still come this week. Word was spreading fast through Horizon Digital that their foundation was crumbling. Mark Delaney showed up at my house around 2 p.m., looking like he hadn't slept. His confident corporate swagger was gone, replaced by barely controlled panic. Dan, we need to talk. This whole lease thing, there has to be a solution. I invited him into my kitchen, offered him a beer. He looked at the lease documents still spread across my table like evidence at a crime scene. You really did sign for the whole thing, he said quietly. 21 years ago, when you needed help and couldn't get it anywhere else. We always meant to transfer it over to the company. It's just, other priorities came up. For 21 years, he ran his hands through his hair. Dan, be reasonable. We employ 47 people. You can't just destroy their livelihoods over a personnel decision. I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply exercising my legal rights as a tenant. The same rights you would exercise if you were in my position. What do you want? Money? A better severance package? Your job back with a promotion? I looked at him sitting at my kitchen table, finally seeing me as something other than the fix-it guy. Finally understanding that I held power he'd never realized existed. I want you to experience being disposable, I said quietly. Just for 30 days. The eviction notice arrived on a Thursday morning, hand-delivered by a legal courier who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Bright orange paper, impossible to miss, taped right to the CEO's office door. I wasn't there to see it happen, but Dan from building security called me with updates. He'd always been decent to me, treating me like a person instead of a service provider. Daniel, you should see this place. It's like someone kicked over an anthill. People running around with folders, phones ringing off the hook. The CEO threw his coffee mug at the wall. Did the notice go where I asked? Right on his door, just like you wanted. That orange paper stands out like a traffic cone. Everybody can see it. I pictured Richard Coleman arriving at his corner office, fumbling with his key, and finding legal documentation of his own disposability taped to the door. The same door I'd installed new locks on 3 years ago when they'd had security concerns. How's the staff taking it? Confused mostly. Some people are packing up their personal stuff, just in case. Others are acting like nothing's wrong. But everybody's talking about you, Daniel. About how you're the one with the real power. After 21 years of being invisible, I was suddenly the most talked about person in the building. The fix-it guy who fixed his own problem in the most permanent way possible. Thanks for the update, Dan. No problem. And Daniel? Good for you. By Friday, Horizon Digital was in full crisis mode. The parking garage was half empty as employees started calling in sick rather than deal with the chaos. The few who showed up spent more time updating their resumes than working on projects. Gerald Franklin called with updates from the landlord's perspective. Mr. Harkins, They've hired a legal team to challenge the eviction. 3 lawyers showed up at my office this morning. Let me guess. They're claiming the lease transfer was implied by 20 years of payments. Something like that. A lot of legal terminology about implied contracts and business relationships. What did you tell them? The same thing I told you. The lease is a legal document with clear terms and signatures. Implications don't override paperwork. The beauty of it was perfect. They could hire all the lawyers they wanted, but contract law was contract law. I was the tenant of record. They were subtenants who'd violated the agreement by expanding without permission. End of story. They're also asking for a meeting with you directly. Something about finding a mutually beneficial resolution. I laughed. A week ago, they wouldn't take my calls about fixing their air conditioning. Now they want to negotiate. Should I set something up? Tell them I'm busy. Maybe next week, after they've had time to pack. Saturday morning, I drove downtown to see the show. Parked across the street from the Horizon building with a cup of gas station coffee and watched the evacuation begin. U-Haul trucks lined the curb like ambulances at a disaster scene. Employees carrying boxes, computer monitors, framed motivational posters about teamwork and success. The irony was beautiful. Claire from HR struggled with a heavy box of files, her professional composure finally cracking. Mark Delaney directed traffic with manic energy, trying to organize chaos into some semblance of order. The CEO was nowhere to be seen. I watched them load their empire into rental trucks, all the fancy equipment and imported furniture that was supposed to represent their success. Now it looked like a yard sale nobody wanted to attend. A few employees recognized my truck and waved. Some gave me thumbs up, apparently enjoying the spectacle of management getting a taste of their own medicine. Others just looked confused, still trying to process how the quiet fix-it guy had become the most powerful person in their professional lives. 21 years of being treated like furniture, and now they were the ones being moved around. The fix-it guy had finally fixed the biggest problem of all, his own situation. The CEO's breakdown happened on Monday morning and was captured on someone's phone camera. Richard Coleman, master of corporate jargon and strategic realignment, completely lost it in the parking garage. It started with a leather executive chair that wouldn't fit in the moving truck. The kind of chair that cost more than most people's monthly rent, now worthless because it wouldn't go through the truck door. According to the video that went viral an hour later, Richard tried to force it, wedging the chair at impossible angles while screaming about incompetent movers and logistical failures. When that didn't work, he grabbed the chair and hurled it against the truck's side panel. The crash echoed off the concrete walls like a gunshot. 20 years of executive dignity destroyed in 30 seconds of pure rage. Someone had added music to the video. Another one bites the dust and posted it with the caption, "When your lease revenge hits differently." By Tuesday, it had 50,000 views. By Wednesday, business blogs were writing articles about the Horizon meltdown and what happens when you forget who really owns your success. I watched it from my kitchen table, coffee growing cold, lease documents still spread out like trophies. The fix-it guy had broken something that couldn't be repaired, their reputation. And unlike their building problems, this was one mess I wouldn't be cleaning up. Their corporate empire, 21 years in the making, was reduced to cardboard boxes and bubble wrap within a week. The same boxes they'd given me to pack up my pathetic career were now multiplied by hundreds, containing their entire operation. The loading dock looked like a refugee camp. Computers wrapped in blankets, office chairs stacked like firewood, motivational posters rolled up like surrender flags. All of it heading to a temporary warehouse space they'd rented by the week because nobody wanted to sign a lease with a company that couldn't hold on to their own offices. I drove by every day, watching the progress like a general surveying a battlefield. Each truckload represented another piece of their confidence, another fragment of their assumed superiority being hauled away by minimum wage movers. The best part was watching the executives try to maintain dignity while supervising their own exile. Mark Delaney directed traffic in a $2,000 suit, sweat stains spreading under his arms as he realized his corner office was just expensive furniture without a corner to put it in. Claire from HR stood in the parking lot with a clipboard, trying to account for every stapler and computer cord like an insurance adjuster at a crime scene. Her strategic restructuring had restructured them right out of a building. 21 years of treating me like hired help. and now they were the ones being hired to move themselves out. The truth started spreading through professional networks like wildfire. Junior employees who'd survived the layoffs were updating their LinkedIn profiles and telling anyone who'd listen about Daniel Harkins, the maintenance guy who'd been the real owner all along. He tried to warn them, posted Jessica from accounting. Every time something broke, he'd write reports about underlying problems. They never listened, just wanted quick fixes. Daniel knew every system in that building, commented Mike from IT support. Electrical, plumbing, HVAC, security. He was the building. They fired the foundation and acted surprised when everything collapsed. The business reporters picked up the story by Thursday. Local tech company evicted by former maintenance worker was the headline that made national business news. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know about the quiet guy who'd held all the cards while being treated like he held nothing. Interview requests flooded my voicemail. Reporters wanted to know how it felt to bring down a multi-million-dollar company with a 21-year-old lease agreement. TV stations offering appearance fees for exclusive talks about workplace revenge. I ignored them all. The story told itself. Sometimes the best response to being made invisible is to let your actions speak louder than any interview ever could. The fix-it guy didn't need to explain himself. The eviction notice said everything that mattered. Back home, I hung the brass key on my kitchen wall next to my coffee pot. Not as a trophy, exactly. More like a reminder of what 21 years of underestimation had actually bought me. The key looked small hanging there, just a piece of tarnished metal on a cardboard tag. But it represented something bigger than its size suggested. It was proof that quiet competence could be more powerful than loud authority, that the person they never noticed was the person they couldn't afford to lose. My phone had finally stopped ringing. Horizon Digital had found temporary space in a strip mall office park, squeezed between a tax preparation service and a used car lot. From downtown high-rise to suburban mediocrity in 30 days. Gerald Franklin called one last time to confirm the property transfer. A new tenant was moving in next month. A growing consulting firm that actually checked their lease agreements and treated their facilities staff with respect. Mr. Harkins, I have to ask, did you plan this? I thought about that question while watching the evening news from my living room. 21 years of fixing other people's problems had taught me patience, attention to detail, and the importance of documentation. No, I finally answered. I just never threw away important papers. Sometimes the best revenge is just being prepared for the day when other people's assumptions finally catch up with them. 6 months later, I was sitting in a coffee shop near my new job when Mark Delaney walked in. He looked older, tired, wearing a suit that didn't fit as well as his old ones. He saw me immediately but hesitated, like he wasn't sure whether to approach or run. Finally, he walked over. Dan, how are you? Good, I said simply. You? We're rebuilding. Found new space, kept most of the team together. It's been challenging. I nodded but didn't offer sympathy. Challenging was spending 21 years being invisible while keeping someone else's dream alive. Challenging was packing your career into a cardboard box while executives laughed 3 floors above. The new building has problems, he continued. Electrical issues, HVAC breakdowns, security system failures. We're spending a fortune on contractors. That's rough. He stood there awkwardly, probably hoping I'd offer to help. The fix-it guy riding to the rescue one more time, solving their problems like I always had. Instead, I finished my coffee and stood up. Good luck with that, Mark. As I walked away, I heard him call after me. Dan, we should have appreciated you more. I didn't turn around. Appreciation was nice, but respect was better. And respect, I'd learned, sometimes had to be taken rather than earned. The fix-it guy was retired. These days, I only fixed my own problems. And those, I fixed permanently.